Welcome to another episode of Discovering the Book of Mormon through Science and Exploration. What if I were to tell you today that you could visit the very site where Nephi built his temple? I believe that during our tours to Peru, we can take you to that very place. In previous presentations, the Incas and the Book of Mormon, and Cusco, the city of Nephi, we present compelling evidence for two theories. One, the Book of Mormon prophet Nephi was the first of the ancient kings of Cusco. Two, Nephi founded the city of Cusco, Peru, during the 6th century BC. For both of these propositions to have been true, Nephi also had to have built a temple in Cusco, Peru, during his reign. Nephi wrote, quote, I, Nephi, did build a temple, and I did construct it after the manner of the temple of Solomon, save it were not built of so many precious things, for they were not to be found upon the land. According to Peruvian historical accounts, the first Inca king constructed a temple on a small hill in the center of Cusco. The early Spanish chronicler Bernardo Cova wrote, quote, he selected for this a very spacious and prominent site, and on it he started to build the great temple of Coricancha. It was not such a magnificent edifice as it later became, but a humble and crude workmanship with adobe walls. This Inca only began the magnificent temple of the Coricancha, which means golden house, and the other kings who succeeded him raised it up to the magnificence and loftiness it had obtained when the Spanish found it. End quote. The parallels between the Book of Mormon's account of Nephi's temple and the oral traditions of the Incas of the first temple built in Cusco are truly remarkable. The question begs to be asked, did the first temple in Cusco, was it built after the manner of Solomon's temple? Unfortunately, today there exists no record of what the first temple in Cusco actually looked like. It is reasonable to assume that the ancient temple was the model for the more refined temple built millennia later by the more recent Inca rulers. The archaeological remains of that temple, now called the Coricancha, can still be studied in detail. Unfortunately, the Spanish constructed the Church of Santo Domingo over the remains of the temple. Nephi continued writing, the manner of the construction was likened to the Temple of Solomon. Certainly, Solomon's temple was not a mud burial mound like those used for worship in North America, nor a stone pyramid like those in Central America that was used to observe the stars, burying the dead, or offering human sacrifices to the bloodthirsty gods. Solomon's temple consisted of the following main components: a courtyard, a large circular font resting on 12 oxen, a pit for sacrificing animals, another small circular font for washings, a large enclosed building, 180 feet long, 90 feet wide, and 50 feet high, consisting of a large ceremonial room and a Holy of Holies. Outside of Peru, such temple complexes had not been discovered in the Western Hemisphere. Another feature of temples is their symbolic representation of the three phases of the human life cycle: the pre-existence, the earth life, and the hereafter: celestial, terrestrial, and celestial. The trilogy of these three elements is found in the courtyard of Solomon's temple, the great ceremonial room, and the Holy of Holies. The Coricancha temple complex consisted of 5 individual temples, one for the sun, celestial, one for the moon, terrestrial, and one for the stars, celestial. There is also a temple to the thunder god. In his book, Welka Wasan Veracocha, Van Evans states that thunder is another name for Jesus Christ. Finally, there is the temple to Veracocha, the bearded, fair-skinned god of the Incas, who they called the creator of all things. I believe the same symbolism is found in the three rooms of the Temple of the Sun: the celestial room, the terrestrial room, and the telestial room. The Temple of the Sun, or Celestial Temple, also contained a statue of Viracocha, the Peruvians' bearded, fair-skinned god. Indeed, the image of Jesus Christ was displayed throughout the Coricancha temple complex. The Coricancha was the most sacred place in the Inca world and the center of their universe. Similar to the LDS temple in Salt Lake City, every street and city in the empire was addressed by its distance and direction from the temple in Cusco. What the Spanish conquistadors found was very different from the simple temple that was originally built in Cusco on the same site. The loftiness of the Coricancha that the Spanish found was breathtaking. When the Spanish arrived in Cusco, the world had not seen a treasure of that nature. Its decorations were perhaps the costliest of any building built up to that time. It was a wonder of the world, with its walls sheathed in pure gold on the side where the sun rose, and of gold alloy on the others. The entire exterior and interior walls of the temple were completely lined in gold plates. The very name of the temple, Golden Enclosure or House of Gold, was given because of the incredible wealth of gold that was embedded in the temple's chapels and its walls from the ceiling to the floor. It contained an altar of pure gold, and like Solomon's temple, a large font in its courtyard. However, unlike the temple in Jerusalem, with its brazen sea font, the fountain of the Cusco temple was cast in pure gold. The golden garden in the courtyard of the Coricancha contained life-size replicas of plants and animals, with its focus point being a life-size statue of the fair-skinned god Viracocha, or Christ. The traditional priests maintain that the actual name of the temple was not Coricancha, but Coricanchi, meaning the house that always shines. One historical account indicates that the gold plates that lined the Cusco temple contained the written sacred history of the Inca people. We will never know for sure, for the Spanish melted down the plates. Still, we know that there was a history that was recorded on boards or plates, and that history was kept in the temple in Cusco. What I refer to as the eternal windows is another feature of the main temple of the Coricancha. Again, the temple consisted of three ceremonial rooms representing the pre-existence, earth life, including the temple's main altar, and the hereafter. Cut in perfect alignment are three windows, allowing one to see in a straight line through all three rooms, the eternities. Just imagine this image if these stones were plated with pure gold. Like the tabernacle before it, Solomon's temple had an entrance on the east side. This allowed worshippers to face west as they entered, moving symbolically towards the presence of God, which was believed to dwell in the innermost sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, at the western end. The east-facing design also echoed the Garden of Eden narrative, where cherubim guarded the eastern entrance, Genesis 3:24. This alignment may have been intended to reenact the journey back towards divine presence and paradise. Further, facing east also aligned the temple with the rising sun, a common ancient motif symbolizing renewal, divine light, and hope. Two features stand out about the temple in Cusco. First, it was aligned along the cardinal points and the celestial bodies. The temple and its entrance were aligned due east towards the equinox. A ray or road ran due east from the temple to the mountain Pachatutzan, which was used to observe the fall and spring equinox. The spring equinox symbolized the renewal of divine light, and hope for a good harvest. The high altar of the temple was on the east end, and the pure gold-plated sides of the Coricancha faced the rising sun to the east. Second, on the east side of the temple was a garden filled with life-size statues of plants and animals. Perhaps these represented the Garden of Eden. It is hard to deny the comparisons between Solomon's temple and the Inca temple in Cusco. There are other interesting facts that remind us of the Salt Lake Temple in Utah, which now stands on earthquake-resistant rollers and springs. The builders of the Inca temple seem to have been inspired. The Cusco temple was earthquake-proof. Its walls are thick on the bottom and thinner as they rise. The great stones that form the walls are interlocked and are tied together with metal pins, and the entire building was built on a foundation of sand and stones formed as balls, allowing the building to roll with the movement of earthquakes. A revelation in our day seems to confirm that Nephi built the original temple in Cusco. Mark L. Glover wrote an article for the BYU Studies, quote, during President Hugh B. Brown's visit to Cusco in February 1963, Elder Tull expressed his worries over the church in the region. On February 7, in a Cusco meeting with 67 people, of which only 20 were members, President Brown echoed Elder Tull's concern. Although there were many men present in the meeting, there were only a few who seemed to have that Mormon look or seemed to be potential leaders. 2 days later, when talking to 4 missionaries in the city, President Brown suggested that, quote, opposition was clearly in evidence and the condition of the people beyond description. The missionaries needed to continue recognizing that the blood of Israel was among the people and they needed to be searched out. President Brown believed that Lehi, Nephi, Mormon, Moroni, and other of the prophets who were on the other side were yearning to have their descendants hear and to accept the gospel. End quote. It has been alleged by a former Peru mission president that the ancient prophets had a lot more to say to President Brown during that visitation. Brent Platt Thomas has taught that the then Andean mission president, Sterling Nicolaisen, was contemplating closing the missionary work in Cusco and asked President Brown for his thoughts. President Brown allegedly said that he would give his answer in the morning. The next morning, President Brown came down for breakfast and told President Nicolaisen that he had not slept the entire night. The Book of Mormon prophets had been with him that night, and they did not want Cusco closed for missionary work. The prophets, apparently Lehi, Nephi, Mormon, Moroni, and others, told President Brown that there would be a temple again in Cusco. A temple again implies that there already had been a temple in Cusco during ancient times. If this is true, the announcement on April 3, 2022, by President Russell M. Nelson that a temple will be built in Cusco, Peru, has special significance to the children of Lehi living in the Andes, as well as to the ancient Book of Mormon prophets. Finally, just as we know that the Inca temple in Cusco evolved from a simple structure into a glorious golden complex, the Book of Mormon tells us that Nephi's original temple was renovated over time. For example, some 400 years after Nephi built his temple with not many precious things, King Noah, quote, caused that his workmen should work all manner of fine work within the walls of the temple, of fine wood, and of copper, and of brass. and the seats which were set apart for the high priest, which were above all the other seats, he did ornament in pure gold. Mosiah 11:10 through 11. When the conquistadors first saw the temple in Cusco, they were stunned by its golden walls. But what did they find inside its walls? Archaeologist Brian Bauer noted that the Cusco temple included, quote, the finest gold and silver objects of the entire empire, including a seat of very pure fine gold. Chavez de Leon wrote that the Spanish found in the temple 2 gold benches. We also know that King Noah added a very tall tower near the temple. Next to the temple in Cusco, the Spaniards found and eventually destroyed a tall tower. Discover more about the Book of Mormon by subscribing to this channel. Just click on the link below. You can also find our books and learn about our annual Book of Mormon tours to Peru by visiting our website, christinperu.com. We will visit the Coricancha temple in Cusco during that tour. I will be your guide. Thank you.